All right, here with more reaction, author of the bestseller Deception, the Great COVID Cover-Up, Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. And by the way, speaking of COVID, Fauci will be back on Capitol Hill next week. This is going to get interesting. Senator, great to have you back. Let's first get your reaction to the breaking news tonight. And to me, the Supreme Court had to take this case. It is too critical. It is too important. And how ironic that a president and a party that claims a monopoly on the term democracy is everything but democratic.
Without question, the Supreme Court has to hear it. When I hear that it's going to be almost a month, though, until the hearing and perhaps longer to the ruling, I'm concerned that even that's too long. I think there needs to be an emergency injunction to shut down any of the states that are wanting to do this and just say the decision will be in 3 or 4 weeks, but you can't be lining these up because they're frivolous, because they are so likely to lose on the merits that we're going to go ahead and shut them down with an injunction now. The reason for that is every day that it appears as if Donald Trump might not be on the ballot, if that goes on for 3 or 4 weeks, that affects the minds of the voters as they prepare to vote. So the accusation, just the accusation alone makes people think, oh, well, maybe he's guilty of something. You know, you think it wasn't planned that they used the words insurrection for 2 years now? We had a riot where some people misbehaved violently and some people should have been punished on January 6th, but it was also a bunch of people milling around, too. Probably 80% of them milling around, kind of curious. I know one young man who walked in, never said a word to anybody, was in the Capitol for a minute and a half, and he gets thrown down to the floor in an airport, arrested, and accused of a crime. So we know that this was a ploy from the very beginning. Why didn't they call it a riot? Because they said, we're going to use the 14th Amendment. We have this plan. We're going to call it an insurrection. But they've so overplayed their hand here. This January 6th was not the Civil War, and nobody believes that. And the more video we've now seen of some of these people, the shaman walking around saying, hey, can I go in that room? And people showing them around, and then policemen saying, hey, please don't go in there. You're going to get in trouble. The more we see that this was not some sort of violent riot for the most part, and it was not an insurrection, the more people say the Democrats are just crazy to think they can win an election on this. And then they want to add to it that we're not going to have Trump on the ballot. They're going to add that to it.
You know, in 2020 in the summer, those mostly peaceful riots that took place, 574, we had a couple of dozen dead Americans, thousands of injured cops. They were pelted with bricks, rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails, billions in property damage, a ton of evidence that nobody ever looked at. You could have arrested every person involved. Maybe you could call that insurrection. But then you go to January 6th. Why didn't they want to talk to the Capitol Police Chief or follow up on even NBC News' report that there was actionable intelligence that they didn't act on? Why is it that Muriel Bowser rejected in writing the use of the Guard? Why didn't they listen to the Capitol Police Chief? And why didn't they do something to prevent anything like this from ever happening again? We can't have another January 6th. But they were too, I guess, focused on just bludgeoning Trump and not looking for a solution to prevent it from ever happening again.
I think you know everything you need to know once you know that the footage that you saw of January 6th played on other networks and by that House committee, that joke of a committee, was done by a Hollywood producer. They went through thousands of hours and they selected out the worst images, but they didn't show any sort of images that countered their narrative. So they set up this narrative and they began using the word. And I remember the first time I heard the words insurrection thinking, well, that's bizarre. Why would they be using the words insurrection? Until the whole thing gets tied together neatly with the 14th Amendment. It has to be an insurrection because those are the words in the 14th Amendment. But the laughable nature of comparing January 6th to the Civil War, and also the demeaning nature. You know, we recently had a candidate ask about the Civil War. Well, to compare a riot where there were no guns and no loss of life from the rioters killing anybody, to compare that to the Civil War where 600,000 people died to end slavery, at least half of them wanting to end slavery, that's just crazy to think that that's somehow going to be equated. The Civil War and the riot of January 6th.
Rand Paul, Happy New Year. Thanks for being with us. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.